Hello. Stacey, hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Can't complain. Not today.
No one listens anyway, do they?
No, not my friend group.
Yeah,
They're,
right.
they're
Seriously.
all therapists. They listen
Yeah.
for a living. So
They try to do ERP on you. Suck it up. Go face that fear. Whatever. Yeah. Do that thing. Oh, man. So, well, good to see you, my friend.
you too.
Yeah. Anything new and exciting going on in your world there?
Not too much. You know, still doing my theme park thing.
Well, that's awesome.
Yes, roller coaster rule.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I should start a service for people who want to learn to ride roller coasters, and we could do like a hierarchy of intensity of roller coasters until you were able to do the biggest ones.
I mean, I'm all for it. I say we do it, right? Mm-hmm. I do like roller coasters myself, so I really do. I think they're very fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
The point of a thrill ride is to be thrilling.
To be thrilling, yes, yes,
So if you're not a little anxious, you're doing it wrong.
yes. Excuse my yawning, everyone. I just arrived home from Germany, so my body doesn't know where I am or what time it is or anything of that nature. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, jet lag is awesome.
Oh gosh, I'm a little off, but that's okay. That's okay. All right. Well, um, it was nice to be in Germany. We were with Game Changers, Chrissy Hodges, doing an event over there, so that was fun. Got to hang out and see some of the work that's going on internationally in the OCD world, and some shout outs to some great people over there. There's OCD Land in Germany, which is not like Disneyland. Let me just tell you. I know you heard that, you got excited for a second,
I
but
did. I did. I was like,
roller coasters or anything, it's more of an online presence than a theme park or anything of that nature. So
yeah, well, but if it has to do with OCD, guess what? It has its own type of roller coaster.
yes, pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to talk about that roller coaster tonight. So hey, let's get on board here. We've got a couple of questions coming in already. How can I tell if a thought is intrusive or intentional? Boy, that's an OCD question right there. That's one of my favorite ones. I hear that one a lot. How about you?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your response would be?
Well, my response would be, why do we even need to know? Number one, right?
Mm-hmm.
That might be one area that we want to take a look at. Um, and the other thing is that when you ask this question and you have OCD, you're hoping for something that will make it a definitive answer for you to be able to tell the difference between intrusive and intentional. And I don't know anybody with OCD that I could ever give an answer to that they would accept as 100%. Say, okay, that clarified everything. Thank you so very much.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. OCD likes to ask questions that have no answers.
Right. Right. So, I mean, I'm going to bet in your life of OCD, you've probably thought this one at some point in time.
Oh, what time is it? You know, and the thing about it is the thoughts don't go away. People often are mistaken in OCD recovery where they're like, oh, I won't have these intrusive thoughts. Yes, everybody has intrusive thoughts. It's
Right.
what we make of them, what we do with them, how we fight against them that makes them challenging in OCD. I mean, I had a doozy. I was flying back from Virginia and I'm on a flight. The plane ride is super smooth. We're having like no turbulence. The weather is fabulous. You know where my
Sounds
brain
lovely.
went?
Mhm.
the plane's gonna, split in half. I'm at 33,000 feet. I won't be able to breathe. So I'll pass out, but I'll wake up at 10,000 feet just in time to know that I'm going to die.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a fun thought. But rather than being anxious, I thanked my brain for the thought and went, you know what? I got other things to pay attention to,
Yeah.
But boy, you can get into worst case scenarios really fast.
Well, here's the other piece. There's almost an intended negativity in that question as well, too, as in
Mhm.
an intentional thought would be bad. So
Yeah.
Stacey, I'm going to have an intentional thought right now, and you know where this is going, I'm sure, because we do this to each other back and forth all the time. Stacey, I'll push you down the stairs the next time we're together at an OCD Foundation conference. I'm going to intentionally have that thought. It still doesn't mean that I'm going to follow through on it, but I'm intentionally having the thought right now of doing that, just so you know. Mhm.
Okay. Well, I'm intentionally having the thought that I will hit you with my cane as soon as I get up.
There you go. So now we've both experienced intentional thoughts.
Yes.
What kind of awful, horrible, bad people are we for that?
I don't know. The thought that just went through my brain is which one of us is more likely to follow through.
Yeah. I'd lay odds you're going to hit me with your cane more than I'm going to push you down the stairs. I'm going
Yeah.
to go with that one. Mhm.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty strong one.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, it does. It implies, intention implies that it's a bad thought, and it's just a thought.
Yeah.
They come and go. We have them all the time.
Mhm. Yeah. So the amount of hours potentially wasted by people trying to figure out the intention behind thoughts or images or urges versus just allowing for them to be there. And here's the thing that I think fascinates people with OCD. People without OCD don't ask this question. Right? Someone without OCD will not wonder if their thought was intrusive or intentional. They'll just be like, "Oh,
That
well,
was,
another thought. Okay.
yeah.
Well, there you
Where,
go."
where'd that come from? Well,
Yeah,
moving
right.
on. Yeah. Well,
Exactly. So this is inherently a question asked by somebody with obsessive compulsive disorder and not somebody without obsessive compulsive disorder.
yes.
Right?
Yeah. The question itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that there's no good answer for this question.
No, you can't answer it.
No.
Right? You can't give an answer to somebody that they will fully believe and know. When I first read this, and my initial thought was, well, you can look. No, wait a minute. I'm not even going there, because why does one even have to know?
Anytime I'm searching for answers, especially if they're like existential answers, that's a big red flag. That's
Hmm.
a rabbit hole. Don't go down it.
Hmm.
Because there are things that we do need answers to, like how to run a report at work or
Sure.
stuff like that. But the minute it gets into, is this real? Is this intentional? Is this gonna harm me? If I do this, will it harm somebody else? What's my responsibility gonna be? They're just key things that go through your head that immediately like, oh, that's OCD yapping.
Hmm.
Um, and I actually use the technique, and I teach it because I'm also a therapist. But I like to name my OCD, and my OCD is called "Little Dude in My Head." And I'm like, "Little dude, shut up,
Shut up, little dude.
shut up,
Hmm.
little dude."
Hmm.
Um, but it worked out quite nicely because my former boss knew that I had OCD, and there's some things that happen every once in a while, and he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh yeah," but the little dude in my head is chattering away.
Mhm.
You know,
Another question. Is it possible to have sexual orientation OCD and end up finding out you are the sexual orientation that you might be having OCD about? Sure.
yeah,
Could be. Yeah.
yep,
Mhm. Which people again hate that answer, right? Well,
yes,
because then they're going to want to go back to the first question, which was, well, then how do I know if my thought is right? Is right? Yeah.
yep,
Yeah. Um, I have worked with people who we worked together, and at the time we worked together, it was a legitimate sexual orientation identity experience for them with OCD, just grabbed onto it. Uh,
hmm
I would say later, after we cleared out the influence of OCD and they were able to approach the question without OCD's influence, now and then there is someone who has decided, oh, you know what? Now that I don't have OCD influencing that, and I get to look at it a clearer head. Oh, okay. Yeah. It has not been the majority by any means, but it's not that it's never happened either.
yeah. Well, I mean, but that makes sense. The majority of people are
Yes,
heterosexual, but
sure. Mhm.
it can happen. OCD tends to latch on to things that are important. So
No,
sometimes,
I thought it only like things you hated. Isn't that?
yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah. What do you know? Learn something new. No, I'm kidding. I kid. I kid. Yes. Yeah. I keep worrying about what other people think of me. What's good ERP? I'm a big fan of mistake practice myself, right? I love to have people purposely go and make mistakes and learn that they can handle the feared judgments or evaluations or critiques or whatever it would come from those mistakes. That is something that I am a huge fan of personally.
yes,
I don't I don't think you can underestimate the power of allowing yourself to be judged or evaluated and to see either A, you can handle being judged or evaluated, or B, what you thought about how you would be judged or evaluated and what actually happened in real life were quite different from each other.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, oh man, we got just slammed with a whole bunch of things.
Oh
Look
yeah.
at that. If you see any you like, feel free, jump in.
There was one I lost it, but it said, "What does it feel like to be able to accept uncertainty?"
Oh,
And
well, I'm going to let you answer that one
yeah,
with your lived experience. I think that would be great.
uh, it's freedom is the thing that came to mind. It really, when you start realizing that thoughts are thoughts and what's OCD and what's not OCD, and you get a clearer picture and understanding of that for yourself. As I said, there are certain red flags that clearly identify what is an OCD thought for me, where I could take it down a rabbit hole. I've learned those over time, and being able to sit with and accept uncertainty gives a sense of freedom that you don't have when you're actively stuck in the OCD cycle of what if, are you sure? What if, I mean, that's a vicious cycle that takes time, energy, both physical and emotional, not only for you, but for the people around you. And you give so much to those thoughts that can never be answered. There's no answer OCD will accept, and there's no compulsion that will get you to say, "Oh, good, now I'm done." So, being able to accept and sit with uncertainty is freedom. That's basically what it is. It's doesn't mean that you don't ever have anxiety. Anxiety is a human emotion, and it doesn't mean those thoughts don't come up, and it doesn't mean every once in a while you don't find yourself tripping over them. But you start to learn what they are, and you can say, "Hey, little dude in my head, shut up," you know, And it really does. That's what recovery from OCD is. It's not that the thoughts go away. Everybody has intrusive thoughts. Everybody has strange thoughts. I'm sure there were 50 people on that plane that had thoughts of something going wrong with the plane, and not every one of them had OCD. So, some of this is just normative as to the human experience. But when you're able to get back to a level where you're like, okay, thanks for the thought. Now I'm going to focus back on what's important in my life. It really is a sense of freedom.
Can you give me the flip side of that from also lived experience, the recovery from substances?
Yes. Well, in a way, it's very similar.
That's what I figured, but since that is kind of the focus of this one, we like to make sure we always bring that topic up. It's important for us to discuss that as well too.
Yeah. Well, because there's a saying in one of the 12-step programs that 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And that's the same concept for OCD.
I say that about compulsions, right?
Yes. So it's the same thing. Just one more, you'll feel better, or this time will be different, or I can't handle this. And it's really, I can't handle this anxiety. I can't handle this depression. I can't handle this intrusive thought. The problem with substances, drugs, alcohol is they work. It quieted my mind, but it didn't solve it. The minute you come down or sober up, the intrusive thoughts are back. You're back in the same rabbit hole. So just like compulsions, there's a short-term relief, but there's no long-term recovery. And so it's very similar. And the fact of the matter for both disorders is you will, I hate to say it, lie, cheat, and steal. To be able to do a compulsion, you might tell a family member who's like, how are you doing today with your OCD? Oh, I'm doing fine. When you're doing mental compulsions, or you just, they came home and they don't know that you just spent, 45 minutes in the bathroom.
Right.
You do whatever you need to because you can't sit with the emotions or the uncertainty. And, the people around us are aware more than we give them credit for. But they're both disorders that isolate you and make your world smaller and smaller and smaller. And finding a way to sit with self and sit with uncertainty opens your world back up.
I like that. I really do like that. And I think that that's such an important message for everyone, because there's plenty of people who have turned to substances as a way to manage their OCD. And so you can recover from both of them.
Yes. And ironically, both of them, the recovery process involves the ability to sit with uncertainty.
How do you expose for obsessive fears of a heart attack? Anytime that there's some fears around this or panic-like symptoms, I always go to interoceptive exposures, running in place, hyperventilating, yep, breathing through straws, spinning in chairs. And I teach people that they can handle the uncomfortable bodily sensations that they keep trying to avoid, or that they're constantly scanning their body for to see if they feel them. And just like in the groinal response, the more you're going to scan for something, the more likely you're going to find something. And then, of course, once you find that thing, what happens? Then you react to it as if it's happening for real and you're in danger and all these kinds of things going on. So it's very, very important, I would contend, to do interoceptive exposures. And there's a really good book that I always recommend called An End to Panic. I would get a copy of that book, and I think that you would find it to be quite helpful. Three NA says it. Oh, were you going to say something, Stacey? Sorry.
No. I'm reading. Sorry, I was moving my lips as I was reading a question.
No. Every time I try to convince myself that my impulsive thoughts aren't really there, the OCD takes over. Well, first of all, why are we trying to convince ourselves that impulsive thoughts aren't there? I I would never try to teach anybody that in therapy, that impulsive thoughts aren't really there. Um, I have impulsive thoughts all the time. So I spend no time trying to convince myself that they aren't there.
Yeah,
Right?
no, none whatsoever.
None. I find that to be a massive waste of time then. Now, it'd be interesting if you wrote back again. What are you really searching for here in this question? Because it almost says AKA ERP there, and the OCD takes over. I would hope that no one is assigning for ERP an assignment to get you to try to believe that the impulsive thoughts aren't really there, because that would not be a good ERP that I would want you to do. Mhm. Lady Hawk's Coloring Cave. What are some creative ways to stop intrusive thoughts or just push them off? By not trying to stop them and not pushing them
Turn
off.
them off. Yep.
That's the most creative way that I can get you to not be so consumed by them, is by allowing yourself to have them and not spend so much time focusing on them or pay attention to them, or going down the rabbit hole that they want you to go down. It's a lot of theme today on the intrusive thought, actually, Stacey.
Yeah, I know. I was noticing that myself.
So I think your lived experience here is so probably really, really important today in a situation like this. But could you share with the audience, because I know you still have intrusive thoughts, images, and urges,
Oh, yeah.
and so do I, even though I don't have OCD, because I've treated so many people with OCD, they're automatically there. And even if I hadn't treated people with OCD, I'd still have them anyway, because I'm a human being.
Yeah.
So, but as a person with lived experience, could you talk to us about your relationship with intrusive thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when they were more, active and problematic in my life, and I did a lot of things to control them, as I said earlier, it takes time, energy, and both physical and emotional. And you spend hours on them. And I think of all the time I lost to uh, doing rituals, routines, mental, things. I mean, hours upon hours, especially at night. The lack of sleep from, going through things mentally is just, astronomical.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they really do, they feel overwhelming, and that you swear that they're true. You If you don't engage in this, something, bad is going to happen to you. um, I would go down a rabbit hole all the time with, harm OCD. I'm going to punch somebody out on public transportation, which by the way, is a feeling I still get from time to time, but I'm not so sure it's OCD related.
Mhm.
um, but then I'll get arrested, then I'll lose my license, I'll lose my job, all of this, I'll be homeless. And so you do all these things. I got off public transportation. Now, if you are a user of public transportation, you already know that it takes 3 times longer than driving a car. So to get off public transportation, in order not to act on these intrusive you are killing time.
Big time. Mhm.
Yeah. Especially because when I did that, I lived in a northern state. So I'm getting off public transportation to stand in 20-degree weather.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Sounds terrible. Mhm.
yeah, no, it really is. And that's also why I don't live in the northern state anymore, because I froze my butt off doing this stuff.
Mhm.
Um, so it really is. And they do feel real. And I think that's part of it. But they're not. And ERP is a way to work through that, to help yourself realize that the feared thing is not going to happen.
Mhm.
Um, but I will say, one day I was having a really fabulously crappy day, And I thought,
craptacular, as I've heard
spectacular crap
some
day.
people say. I like that phrase.
Oh
by
yeah,
the way.
craptacular. Yeah.
Mhm.
In order to get out of my bachelor's degree, I had to take a writing test. You know,
Mm.
you give me a math test, I am fine.
Mhm.
You give me an essay, ugh.
Mhm.
I hated them. And this was one you had to pass in order to complete this particular bachelor's degree. And of course, I took it and I thought, I blew it. I'm not going to graduate. I was just, and somebody bumped into me on public transportation on the platform. And I turned
On public.
around.
Back to that again. Yeah. All right. There we go.
I turned
Mhm.
around and I actually pushed them and put my hands on them.
Whoa.
I was
Mhm.
like, see, it happened.
There you go.
I
There you go.
proved the OCD right, and so that was, but really that was just a poor decision on my part because I was angry and thought I had failed out of, my bachelor's degree and I wasn't going to be able to go into grad school and all this stuff. But it's a challenge when you have these intrusive thoughts. And I saw somebody said that, the intrusive thoughts were ruining her relationship because people with OCD, just like they don't understand the substance use. Why can't you just stop?
Mhm.
You really do need to have some support and some education for people in your life as to what OCD is and how they can be helpful. And giving you constant reassurance is not being helpful. So if you're seeking constant reassurance, that can be problematic to your relationships. And that
Mhm.
if they believe that they're helping you when they're not,
Right.
your OCD is getting worse. And your relationships, I have seen relationships end because of this constant, reassurance or an inability to go out of the house to engage in activities that are important to the relationship to the other person. They value being able to go out, be with friends. And if your OCD is so severe that you're not able to do that, it could, in fact, be a problem.
So, this may be shocking to everyone, but we're gonna bring it up here. You're saying OCD has not improved your relationships.
No,
Okay, I
none.
just wanted to really make that very firm right there to everybody, that you would not recommend that if you want to make your relationships better, that
No,
you bring OCD into the mix. That would not be your recommendation.
no, no,
Okay.
no.
Okay. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
All right. I was just curious. Just want to make sure. Mhm.
yeah. And I'm not even a marriage and family specialist. I know that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. As you've fond of saying, you've never prescribed a little OCD for somebody
No.
and,
No.
and
No.
to
No.
solve
Mhm.
their questions.
Yeah. Just like you, we've never prescribed other mental health conditions
Yeah.
for things either. You seem quite happy. Have you considered some depression just to bring you back into the middle, right?
Yeah, to level up a little bit.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would sound stupid, right?
yeah. Would you like a little PTSD just so you
Yeah,
can have interrupted sleep?
yeah, right.
You
Mhm.
know, be a little anxious.
Lady Hawk then says, "What are some creative ways to stop intrusive thoughts or to just put them off?" Well, we never want to try to stop intrusive thoughts because that's going to guarantee having intrusive thoughts. Right? The it makes me bring out my pink elephant. There he is again. Woohoo! Hey, hello. There you go. Yeah. So she's saying hi. Hello, everyone. Hello. The more I try not to think of my pink elephant, the more I'm going to think of my pink elephant. So, please, Lady Hawk, remember, do not attempt to stop thinking about intrusive thoughts because it is going to lead you to think about all the intrusive thoughts. Right. And Stacey, I'm going to bet part of your lived experience spent a lot of time trying to not think of things. How did that go for you?
Yeah. Yeah, fabulously. Did you miss the part where I said the lack of sleep?
Yeah.
20-degree weather?
Yeah. Well, I just, sometimes repetition is the best source of really getting things across to people. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
But I got to say, repetition for OCD, no. Maybe with ERP, but there's good repetition if you're doing ERP exposure, and there's bad repetition. I can't even speak. Repetition in compulsive behavior.
Mhm. So QC Creation says, what would be good coping skills or strategies or ERP that would help with obsessive fears and thoughts with OCD? Well, I expose people purposely to the intrusive thoughts, images, and urges, and then I participated it myself. I'm one of those therapists where, if you have a fear that if you think something, it's going to cause something bad to happen, I'm going to think it right there with you, and neither of us are going to do a compulsion afterwards, and we're going to see what happens. Does the thing actually occur? It probably doesn't. And if it does, can we handle it in a way better than we thought we could? Well, probably we can. And B, when it doesn't happen, what that does is start to break the chain a little bit here in this experience, right? Because now you're experiencing thought action fusion, the idea that a thought equals an action. A thought is as bad as an action. A thought will cause an action. A thought will make something happen. I have for 24 years now used the exact same example when I do talks, which is I want everyone in the room to stare at the ceiling for the next 10 seconds, and without doing anything to neutralize it, wish for it to collapse upon you, and let's watch it crush everybody here in the room. And as of yet, that has not occurred. So either thoughts don't actually cause things to happen, or somebody's consistently, every time I've done that example, and I've probably done it over 1,000 times because I do it at least once in every talk that I do, pretty much. So, and I've given now over 1,000 of those. What it actually means then is that every single time I've done it, somebody's done a ritual, and that's the only reason why the ceiling hasn't collapsed. But I've also done it just to test that out here at home by myself without anybody else around, and I've wished for it to collapse on me, and I have done no rituals whatsoever, and it still has not happened. So my ask to everybody with OCD is, can you please explain to me why the ceiling hasn't collapsed yet? Because I've thought about it, I've wanted it, I've wished for it, I've willed it, and yet it is not yet occurred. And if it doesn't work that way, then how are you going to explain to me the way OCD works? Because you're going to use a very similar logic. And how can you then utilize that and say, well, this is why OCD is true, when we can do this example right here with the ceiling collapsing and find it to so far be absolutely not true. Now, could it one day happen? Absolutely, it could. Right?
Yes.
It is a possibility. But I don't confuse possibility and probability in the way that OCD confuses possibility and probability.
No, I mean, life still happens. I actually, you bring that example up of the ceiling falling, and I have a new house, it's new construction, and I was quietly sitting in my living room, and the ceiling fan fell out of the second floor bathroom.
Ah!
And so I called the warranty people, and I said, you're going to check all of them now. And it turns out when they put all of them in, they forgot to secure them with the necessary screws.
Oh.
So they were just shoved in there and held in by pressure.
Oh, geez. So they had to come back and do some fixing.
And do some things. So life still happens. So
Mhm.
The whole ceiling didn't fall in, but again, I think that doesn't prove OCD right, because even now that they're fixed, if, OCD wanted to come in and still have the thought, it'd be like, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again, and ask me to do all these things to neutralize it or take care of so it wouldn't happen again when, yeah, bad things do happen in life and we deal with them as they come up,
That they do, right?
Yeah.
That they do. And so it's almost as if, and again, lived experience wise, it's almost as if OCD is going to say it is not allowed to have bad things come up in my life.
Yeah.
Or let me throw a few other things at you and just get your opinion. I won't be able to handle it if bad things happen in my life.
And that's the same thing SUD says too.
Right. Or I'll be responsible if bad things happen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes. And there are times, and that you get into a weird space. Like I've had some family members with terminal illnesses, and we have all these direct to consumer commercials on TV. So for a while, I got in a space where if I listened to one of those commercials all the way through, then there was going to be a bad outcome with somebody in my family. So I would literally leave the room, stick my fingers in my ears, or mute every commercial that came up to talk about, drugs for that particular ailment. And that's hard when you have company. It's like, oh, excuse me, I got to go. You're watching a football game. This could come up 5-6 times. Oh, I'm going to go get. Why did you mute it? I'm like, oh, I just, again, but it's the have to. And I think the have to feeling is where you get stuck, because that's just one have to. There's multiple have tos in a day. And then, you look at how much time you've given to, this. And on top of it, if you're using substances to control it, then you've given some of your day to OCD and some of your day to SUD, and not much of it was left for you.
Yeah. Interesting side note. When I do talks internationally, you know what people ask me all the time? Why does your country advertise drugs and medications on television?
Yeah. Yes.
Because you don't see it. I've never seen it anywhere else.
Nope.
Where they're prescribing drugs on TV, or they're advertising drugs on TV. Mm-hmm.
Nope. We are the only ones that do direct to consumer advertising of prescribed medications.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Don't get me started, because I can go down a rabbit hole with this one. Because there's not always truth in advertising.
Maggie puts in here, I think I found my people. Good. We're glad. We're glad. Let's see. Alan says, OCD and fear of loud noises. Does it sometimes cause your body to have pain sensations? Oh, I'm sure. OCD is going to take advantage of anything, right? So, I've met plenty of people who are exposed to things who describe panic sensations, other uncomfortable physical sensations, or something of that nature. OCD knows no limit to what it will try to do to get you to do a compulsion.
No. And there's a lot of, I fear that I'll have anxiety. So you monitor for anxiety, and guess what? The minute you monitor for it, you find out you have anxiety. It's the same, loop as the intrusive thoughts. When you're trying to push away the intrusive thoughts, you're going to become more aware of the intrusive thoughts, and then they stick around longer, and you're in the same loop.
Can response prevention alone be enough to get over OCD, since we're always exposed to the trigger thoughts? I'd say so, because the beauty of always being exposed to something is you have two choices. Do you do a compulsion or do you do response prevention? And how do you strengthen not having OCD, take over your life? How do you weaken OCD itself? By response prevention, by not going down the rabbit hole that it wants you to go of trying to figure those thoughts out. So if you're constantly having trigger thoughts, and remember, people without OCD have all these kinds of thoughts as well too. The difference is people without OCD just go, oh, that was weird, right? And I really want to enforce that because there are tons of people out there who don't know they have OCD. And there's lots of people out there who also, I think, and Stacey, you may see this too, throw around the OCD moniker as well and say, oh, I have a little OCD, because I have a thought or two. Well,
a thought or two.
Yeah, right. I want to dispel that. All of us have intrusive thoughts all the time, right?
Yes.
They just happen. They're just kind of there, I just driving home today from the airport. Yeah, I jerk, ass, just all these things that were popping in my head as people were swerving in and out and all sorts of things like that. I mean,
I have all sorts of intrusive thoughts about the referees on the football field every Sunday.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm blind and I saw that. Okay. So you're an idiot. But yeah, no, ERP is, absolutely sufficient because you do have those two choices. Do you do a compulsion, something to neutralize, or do you, keep moving forward? But, there's practice ERP, and then there's, things come up, natural exposures come up in your life and give you the opportunity to keep moving in your valued direction. So you can formalize your ERP, but you also take the opportunity when things come up in life that might trigger you. Because you're right, we are surrounded by triggers.
Not doing ERP means long-term discomfort. Doing ERP means short-term discomfort. Which discomfort would you like?
Yep. And same with substances. When you add substances in,
there you go.
Gives you short-term comfort, but long-term discomfort.
I mean, Stacey, there's plenty of people who have addiction who want to stop, but are so afraid of going through withdrawal that's why they keep using.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And in the majority of cases, withdrawal will not kill you. The exception to that is alcohol. If you feel like you have an addiction, a substance use disorder involving alcohol, and you want to stop, make sure you check with a medical professional, because there are some life-threatening aspects of withdrawal from alcohol, to include seizures and things called delirium tremors, which is a short-term psychosis, and they are life-threatening. But, generally, opiates, you're miserable, but you will not die from it. Cocaine, you won't die from it. Stopping marijuana, because newsflash, you can have a marijuana substance use disorder. I know that people have this theory that marijuana fixes everything, but let's be honest. Legal does not mean safe. Alcohol is legal. I can't drink alcohol. That is a life-threatening choice for me to put alcohol into this body. It doesn't work well. I tried for over a decade. I saw how that worked badly. But it's legal. It's safe. I have friends who drink. I don't mind being around it anymore. I tell my friends, I can swim in it as long as I don't swallow it. But not that I'd go for a swim in it, but cigarettes are safe. I mean, cigarettes are safe. Boy, brain fart.
Brain fart. Mm-hmm. They're legal.
But cigarettes are actually the number one reason people are admitted to hospitals. if you think of lung disease, COPD, emphysema, exacerbated asthma, congestive heart failure, heart attacks, it's probably the largest contributing factor to poor health outcomes in the United States. And it's 100% legal as long as you're over 18.
Yeah.
So there is a withdrawal from, different things, including marijuana and cocaine. You're not going to feel well, but chances are you won't, it's not going to kill you. But alcohol is definitely one you want to check with a physician.
We always recommend a physician monitoring that one for sure.
But both of them have this feeling of, I have to fix this. I feel bad. Something's wrong. So I either do a compulsion or I take another substance. I have to avoid this bad feeling. And the reality is, in order to get into recovery and stay there, you have to embrace the positive and the negative, the good and the bad, because being able to sit with uncertainty has definitely given me a lot of freedom. But I came here kicking and screaming and throwing things at my therapist, quite literally. I was not thrilled with ERP, but I definitely like the results. And for me, I had gone through various therapy because I also, have PTSD. So I had done other things, CBT, DBT, all these other things that got me looking better on the outside. And by the time I got to ERP, I was, definitely what I think of as therapy primed. Like, okay, I am going to try this because other things have gotten me this far, and this might move me. And it really did. And I frame this when I'm talking as CBT got me better, ERP got me well.
Could you touch on again, because we want to pay homage to our theme, as you were doing ERP and that goal of immediate relief versus having to sit there through the discomfort and allow that habituation experience to occur. What was the draw to use substances when you were being exposed to things for the first time and not doing compulsions?
Avoidance, feeling better. It's that instant relief. As I said, the problem with substances is they work.
Yeah.
And they do. If you do this, you can have instant relief, but it's short-term relief. And I had enough of short-term relief. It's a lie. And when you start to understand that it's a lie, that the substances are lying to you, one more isn't going to do it. You're not going to be okay. There's always something behind it. The same with the compulsions. There's always something behind. You have to do it again. And then there's this never-ending cycle that's stealing time, energy, relationships from you. And it's a lie. What if I can't handle this? What if I feel bad? Well, feeling bad sucks, but it will pass if you don't use a substance. It will pass if you don't give into a compulsion. And more from the SUD side, there's neuroimaging to prove this out. Your brain starts to heal because there are chemical and structural changes in the brain with repeated substance use. What they shows is the longer you stay away from a substance, there's an arc where your brain starts to heal. And it takes some time, but it does. And I would believe, although I haven't looked into it extensively, but there's a similar probably process with letting go of compulsions that you start to think and respond differently. And in SUD, we see what we call the acute phase peaks at about 45 days, and you're past the detox phase. at about 3 months. And then from 3 months to about 24 months, it completes the whole cycle. And it's not like, oh, in 24 months, you're done. Yay. But your brain has recovered sufficiently that we can clearly see the difference on a brain imaging scan. So this does take time. It's not like you stop for one day and your life gets rosy. This is a process, and you are retraining your brain and giving it time to heal with both disorders.
Yeah. I like that. I think that's really good imagery for people. How much, when you were going through treatment, was it hard that it wasn't immediate? Like, why am I not one and done with these things?
Oh, yeah. I thought my therapist had, his cheese had slipped off his cracker. So if you want me to do what? I'm like, yeah.
I'm going to steal that. Wow. That guy's cheese has really slipped off his cracker there. I think that's a good one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, ERP is, I don't want to give people the impression that it's easy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
In terms of therapy, it was hard. I mean, you want to talk about anxiety. I had anxiety going to therapy. And then you're going to expose me to stuff that's going to make me more, I was anxious when I got in the door.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can trust in the process, it's like if you go to a doctor and they say you have, diabetes, then you might go to them and he'll say, okay, what do I got to do for diet? What do I got to do for my blood sugars? Testing your blood sugar isn't a fun thing, but you're going to learn the process. And people might, especially if they have type 1 diabetes, they can get really, really sick from it before they get the diagnosis. You're going to learn how to manage
absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to take some time, and you might have blood sugar spikes or drops while you're learning to do it, but you're going to trust the professionals.
Yeah.
I think a little bit in behavioral health as opposed to medicine, we're like, I don't think you know what you're doing. I'm not doing that. This isn't going to help. And the reality is these are proven evidence-based techniques that, if you have some trust in the process, that, things can improve. Now,
Mm-hmm.
people sometimes have to augment with medications or, integrate some things like acceptance and commitment therapy. It might not be a one thing fits everybody. Different exposures can come into play, but these are proven therapies. And if you're working with a professional that knows about OCD,
Mm-hmm.
then some of it is trusting the process. And I was fortunate to have a therapist that I trusted, even when it was hard.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that there's an interesting discussion around this, that maybe in OCD and substance use, there's misplaced trust. The trust is put into the OCD of, well, this thing that's telling me about all the bad things that might happen could be right.
Yep.
And there's trust put in the substances of, wow, this thing that brings me this relief is really, really actually quite helpful and probably good for me. I've always been amazed when we were, doing Foglia and the work there of the amount of time that I've seen people try to convince me why a compulsion or using a substance is a good thing.
Oh yeah. I had a young woman sitting in detox saying, I don't think I have a problem with alcohol. And I looked at her, I said, people who don't have a problem with alcohol are not admitted to detox. And she went, oh, point. But yeah, you'll trust the substance, or you'll trust your dealer, or you'll trust your bartender, or you'll trust your OCD, but you won't trust the trained professional
Come on, we're idiots. What do we know?
Well, yeah,
Mhm.
and everybody's had the experience of maybe having someone they didn't mesh with or something, or some of us have had the experience of getting an inaccurate diagnosis. Um, and that can cause some challenges. So, learn what to ask a therapist. And if you need to switch therapist, but you got to be careful, because if you're switching because you don't like the ERP and you want to find an easier, gentle way, or, that's a different problem. But, if you don't really mesh with them, or they're not using ERP or ACT or an evidence-based treatment, they're trying to talk you out of your OCD. Because you can't talk your way out of this. This is more of an experiential thing, whether you're using ACT or ERP or a combination. You are going to learn to interact and have a different relationship with those thoughts.
I think even about interventions like for substance use, right? There's a lot of talking in there, but that talking is to get someone to go and do the work,
Yes.
to get them built up to go and do the actual behavioral changes.
Yes.
And so much of the work that we're doing, there's a motivating component in the work that we do, trying to get people motivated to do the thing, right? I always joke, my favorite Irish phrase in the world is, only an Irishman can tell you to go to hell and make you look forward to the journey. And I think of ERP kind of, not hellish, but in a sense of one of the skills that an ERP therapist may actually have is their ability to convince you to do something that's uncomfortable and make you excited about doing it.
Yes. Yes. Or in the SUD world, having a therapist who's asking you to give up your best friend, and you become willing to go on that journey with them.
And I think for the two things, and I was scrolling through some of the questions that came up there, but to do that ERP without the influence of those substances, otherwise you create something called state dependent learning, where you learn, as long as I'm doing the substance, I can do the ERP as well too, which then also works against exactly what we were going for in that situation.
Yes. Yes. So, you want to do ERP without the substances to get, the most bang for your buck. You're spending your time, your energy, your effort, and your money sometimes to do the therapy. So it is better to do it without the substances. And I've worked with people who smoke marijuana, and I say, you're going to get more if you don't smoke marijuana during ERP. If you want to go back to it afterwards, and it's legal in your state, have at it. But, these two things we're going to separate for the moment.
Right. CBD, marijuana, anything, just because it's so easy for someone then to say, well, the reason this worked is because I did that.
Yes.
Right. I remember a guy I know who was in a bit of a jam, and things going on in his life and stuff, and he had a panic attack at work, and the ambulance came and they took him to the hospital, and they put him on some medication, and I gave him a bunch of stuff to do because he called me. So it was funny. He said a week later, man, I'm feeling really good. That medication really helped. Now, it was an SSRI, which means it hadn't even taken effect yet, because it takes 6 to 8 weeks for it to really reach its dose potential. But he was doing the exercise I gave him every day. But guess what? He attributed to why he was okay was to the fact that he took the medication. Right. Yes. So, yeah. Everything plays a role. Everything has its place, right? But the things that we take that aren't prescribed can definitely get in the way. And so I think that that's a good message. As we get to our winding up for the evening, we have hit our time once again, Stacey. So I want to, as always, thank you for being here with me. We do this every second Monday of the month. And Stacey, you want to tell them a little bit about the OCD SUD special interest group that we have, please?
We have a website. It is OCDSUD.com. I had to think. And we try to put information up there. We have previous talks and slides, some resources. We try to, add to it as our community grows and our knowledge base grows. There's not a lot of information out there right now on these two co-occurring disorders. We're trying to change that and have a space where people can come and ask questions about OCD, SUD, get information. So visit the site, take a look around. There's some videos up there, previous talks. There's a link to all of these chats on webinars on YouTube. So if this is your first one, you can go back and watch the previous ones. There's some town halls with the IOCDF and so there's good information there. If you want to know a little bit more about OCD and SUD, go check it out. Again,
Please do.
OCDSUD.com.
Awesome. We'll see you all again in a month, and join me on Wednesday night as I do my Wednesday night webinars as well. So thanks, Stacey. We'll talk to you later.